Welcome. I am very excited. I'm here with another episode of Conversation Nation. I am here with Janus, Redmoon, a friend, but also an inspiration. He is a writer, a philosopher, a burner, an entrepreneur. He is the founder, originator of the very first men's group I ever went to. And has a lot to share. Over the recent months, I've had this kind of reoccurring thought as I'm trying to navigate realms and ideas that I am uncomfortable with. I will think, well, what would Janus think here? What would Janus do? And so I'm really excited to have you here today to just to touch base and go deep.
Great, thank you for having me. So I'll have to get you one of those what would Jesus do bracelets with the WWJD, but you can switch it to
well, I'm glad you said that, because I've been meaning to show you my new tattoo about what would Janus do. No.
Oh, fantastic.
So for context, can I ask your age and height?
Age and height. Yeah. I am 52, turned 52 this year, and I am 6 feet 5 inches tall.
And I asked that because that's a lot of years of being on this planet as a large Black man.
This is true.
And so I think that that is a context for your perspective that might not be clear as we're talking in these webcams, but I think is relevant. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it definitely has bearing on my life experience and how I experience the world and how the world experiences me. So yeah, it matters. Yeah, for sure.
And where did you grow up?
I grew up in Tacoma, just Washington State, just south of Seattle. Spent my formative years there, and ended up moving to Los Angeles. I went to USC Film School, and ended up moving there in 1990 when I was 22, I believe. And so I was there in LA. I only really lasted in school for about a year, but ended up living in LA for 17 years. And most of that time I was in the health and fitness industry as a fitness trainer, and spent a few years as a competitive bodybuilder, natural bodybuilder. So spending 6-7 hours in a gym every day, working out twice a day, and like living that lifestyle. And it's one of those things, you do anything long enough, you tend to burn out on it. So after 17 years and having discovered Burning Man at the tail end of that, Los Angeles is one of those towns that has a expiration date that kind of sneaks up on you. And so you love it on Monday and you wake up on Tuesday like, oh my God, what am I doing? So then I moved briefly to the Bay Area. I flirted with the East Bay for about 6 months, and it never quite took. I always felt like I was visiting and not living there. And so then I reached out to some San Diego friends I had made through the festival scene, through various, San Diego DCOM and Burning Man itself and such, and really solid connections and solid people, you among them, in San Diego. And I reached out to a handful of people and was like, well, I'm thinking about moving to San Diego, but I have no job, I have no place to live, so I would need a little bit of, need to get by with a little help from my friends. If you guys could assist with the landing in San Diego. And everyone I reached out to reached back and said yes, by all means, with work opportunities and places to live and so on and so forth. So it was a very welcoming atmosphere in San Diego, and that was almost 13 years ago. So I'm here now still, and loving it, living the San Diego dream. It's been good. So
from the beginning of my experience with you, you have always had a centeredness and a calmness and an integrity to your presence. And I'm wondering, is that something that you were raised with, or did you grow into that? How did you become the man you are today?
Well, I mean, frankly, I don't believe it was how I was raised. Frankly, I was adopted by two people, my adopted parents, who were not able to physically have kids, so they adopted. But that is, for me, even at a young age. At a young age, was proof that sometimes God knows what she's doing. It's like, okay, you two should not have kids, but they had, so they had adopted kids. So, and that wasn't. I don't know how far into that you want to get, but that was, so my childhood wasn't like, I'm not gonna win any medals for the crappy childhood Olympics, but I was definitely in the race. It's definitely in the stadium, and so there was a bit to overcome with that as an adult, and it definitely kind of set me back, held me back in some significant ways. It took me a while as an adult to get up to speed or find my speed, and just be an adult that people were happy to be around, and I look forward to being around. It frankly took longer than I would have liked, but I think by the time I got to like my mid 30s, I started to figure it out a little bit earlier than that, a little bit, but really actually right around the time I discovered Burning Man. It's like one of those things, and not that we're going to get into this one time at Burning Man, dialogue. I think we've all heard that enough, but really it's my experience the first time I was there, which 2002. You don't realize that you're wearing a mask in your life until you don't have to wear it anymore. And then so on that first, experience on the play, you realize like, wow, I've got this whole, persona identity that I'm presenting to the world that is highly inauthentic. And you don't need to do that there. And in fact, that gets sussed out pretty quickly on the play. Because if you're surrounded by a bunch of people who are being authentic and you're not being authentic, you stand out like a, cactus in the middle of the ocean. It's pretty ridiculous, actually. So that was like, oh, okay. And that was when I was 2002. I'm not sure how old I was then, just early 30s. And it's like, oh, I've got some work to do. So, and that work hasn't stopped. It's just a matter of, continually, course correcting, doing well, steering a little far this way. It's like, okay, I need to get back this way. And so my life since then has been a constant, continuous, work of, self-discovery, self-improvements, and then being okay with the idea that, we're never going to get it right. We're never going to arrive at this place that is like, yes, I'm finally my actualized, highest version of myself that I could possibly achieve, and this is it. And we're never going to get that. We might have these moments, certainly at best, but a good quote that I've been able to kind of stick with me, that's kind of helped me, and I wish to goodness I can remember his name, but it's a Tibetan monk, and he said that there is, strictly speaking, there are no enlightened people. There is only enlightened activity. So you might be, so you can reach that, you can do something that could be perceived as, the version of your highest self, but you will never actually be that, be that person. So we just do our best, and do our best, and hope at the end of the day that was good enough.
And when you are aspiring to be your best, are there people that have been role models or mentors? You mentioned a monk. Are there teachers or people that are the people that you go, I'm listening to them?
Well, when in our community, when you're on the path of self-discovery and self-improvement, you stumble upon a bunch of writers, philosophers, educators, and such. So there's the usual Alan Watts, Carl Jung, Rumi, and Hafiz. Poets of all types of writers, and philosophers, and that guy, Terence McKenna, big idea guys and such. personally, for me, yeah, I've had a few people that I'm happy and lucky enough to consider friends. There's people that I've sat with in plant medicine ceremonies who really gone a long way towards, helping me in that regard. And people that I've introduced to those spaces and people that I've met in those spaces who become like lifelong friends and will be lifelong friends for quite a while. So, people that just offer a reflection for when you're, doing it right, and for also when you there's room for improvement. But there's ways to do that, and learning what I've learned from these people is how to offer a different way of thinking, a better way of thinking in some cases, with compassion, from a non-judgmental stance, which has been very valuable. Sometimes we need a kick in the pants for sure, and then other times it's like an invitation to have a seat and slow down and perhaps listen to a different way.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So you mentioned the transformative introduction to Burning Man, which I too will say yes, and most people I know. One of the things that has been being talked about a lot lately is the experience of people of color at Burning Man. Were you aware immediately that this is how was your experience, do you think, different or affected by that, or not affected?
It's interesting in that I've talking to a number of my friends, people of color, Black people who have gone to Burning Man, and our experiences have been similar. My experience was that race wasn't really much of a factor in my experience, I'm happy to say, until I brought it up. Meaning that, and this is true for the, not only on the playa, but also like outside, off the playa, but still within the community. Like your race doesn't really, my race doesn't really come up as a factor until I would bring it up in regards to being concerned with issues of race in the world at large. And then discovering that for a large number of people, Burning Man environment, the culture is a bit of escapism. It's a bit of an escape from these real world kind of stuff where I don't have to think about that. I don't have to worry about all the myriad issues that are out in the world. And while, the idea of Burning Man kind of presents itself as an incubator for ideas to bring back into the world to help elicit change, a lot of people aren't there for that. A lot of people are there for the party. A lot of people are there for, all the, the sparkles and all that. That is certainly there to get. But I found that when I would bring it up, issues of, and this really kind of drove home to me about 5 years ago, around the time of the Ferguson uprisings, and I believe it was Michael Brown that was the unfortunate hashtag in that incident. And bringing that up to certain people, friends of mine at, whether it was online or in person at a gathering or whatever, and people just didn't want to hear about it. I had people, mutual friends of ours that I still like and respect. I would bring up issues of diversity or issues of race or such, and people would literally be like, hold that thought for a second, and turn around and run, not walk, run to the opposite side of the party. I just watched them just sprint away from me as I'm standing there like mid-sentence. And that happened more than once. And so I kind of realized, and that's where I became a little bit disillusioned from the culture. Not all of it, but a large part of it, just because realizing that there was a desired separation between the two worlds, so to speak. And which is kind of dangerous actually, because there's a lot of people in one culture where, you know, some aspect of, you see it a lot, whether it's in the tantric community, the Burning Man community, the plant medicine community. It's all good in their little bubble, but when they have to open that up to being like, okay, so we're gonna try to do or affect some change in the real world, and a lot of people in all these communities are simply not interested in it, haven't been interested in it, and so yeah, it's tough. It certainly doesn't, you know, not to implicate everyone in all these cultures, but it's a significant enough number that, you know, not a lot's going to happen, and it's kind of, you know, disillusioning unless you are happy to reside within that bubble and stay there, then that works for you. But it's like, you know, the guy eating steak in the Matrix movie. It's like, I know this isn't real, but it's really good, and if I could just stay in here, that'd be fine. I'm not particularly interested in, you know, the struggle that's happening out there, and I'm happy to, you know, plug me back in. And, you know, these people, it's like, you know, we talk about woke culture, like you go to any of these cultures, the entheogenic, you know, culture, the people who love, you know, mushrooms and ayahuasca or Burning Man or tantric or whatever. Most of these people would consider themselves conscious or woke or whatever, but they don't want to be woke to, you know, some real world stuff. They might even talk about it, but when confronted with actually doing something about it or standing up, you know, for other people, they lack the courage of their convictions, so to speak, and that's been kind of writ large as of late, as of this year, for a lot of people. So.
Well, I want to commend you, because I think one of the things that you do really well is in bringing up these kind of like, hey, wait a minute, you know, there's another way to look at this, or I don't think you guys are seeing this. And you mentioned that you've been taught by people how to kind of tap someone without, you know, making them defensive. And I think that you got a really a well-developed skill of introducing a delicate topic in a way that is not instantly repelling. So it's a bummer that people are running away, because I definitely always appreciate when you've done it. But I can remember times online when you have made a very gentle reminder of like, well, that's not the way everybody sees it, and people react in a very kind of aggressively defensive way.
Yeah. And I get that. It's because to take this other perspective on, for a lot of people, would indicate that they were doing it wrong, or that there's some sort of guilt or culpability for being responsible with the way things are. It's like, you know, racism. People look at things like racism, and it's like, if you're not, you know, there's a lot of people that are like, well, you know, I don't use racial epithets. I don't wear a white hood, so I'm not a racist. And it immediately goes to like the most, you know, repellent presentation of that thing. And if I don't do that, then that doesn't apply to me. And, you know, I'll bring up something, or anybody will bring up something. It's like, okay, there's an actual systemic thing going on here that a lot of people are participating in. We're all kind of participating in to a certain degree. So, you know, it's almost like, you know, there's no such thing as like, you know, conscious capitalism. There's, you know, if you got a smartphone, you're guilty of some, you know, enabling some atrocities on the other side of the world, just as an example. So people don't like to think about that. So you can bring it up as gently as possible, and there's still going to be a large number of people who just don't want to hear it, and they'll kind of react, you know, aggressively.
Well, you bring up the kind of like that binary idea of like wearing a hood or being a good guy who's not racist. And I think that to me, that has been one of the most impactful shifts of awareness recently, is that idea that it is not binary, and that that because the systemic racism that exists, everyone really has the opportunity to look and find the ways that they are contributing and complicit. I mean, that's been a a challenging thing for me over just kind of looking at things over the last, 15 years, the whole time thinking that like, I am pure righteousness, I am all good. And then to go, oh, I mean, I didn't mean anything, but I could have been better there. I could have been better in there. And I see how how that is not an easy thing for people to do. So I, again, want to just thank you for being a voice that I think helps people to see those things without the walls going up so quickly. And so I want to ask you about that so do you find yourself in that role often of the black guy that so many white privileged burners know, that either I say something or no one does, or do you find yourself put in an awkward situation?
Yeah, yeah, fair to say. And I've kind of come to kind of accept that, just because in our community, there are some in the Burning Man culture, there are some people of color, but not a lot. And so for a lot of people, I'm one. I mean, a lot of my friends are white, and I am one of the few people of color that they actually know on a first name basis. Certainly not all of them, but for a lot of them. So yeah. So of late, even when I meet people for lunch or online, or I get I don't know, 5, maybe 10 kind of check-ins, especially lately. 2020 has been a good year, interesting year. Especially lately, people are just like, "Hey, just thought I'd check in, see how you're doing, see what you're up to." Say, I got this brother who's like really like kind of this way, and I'm not sure what to talk to him about, or so I get that, and like, "Hey, have you seen this they'll send me links to documentaries like 13th or whatever, and like, "Hey, have you seen this?" It's like, that's not for me.
Right.
To watch that. That's not. I'm not the one to watch that. It's like, all these Netflix shows that what they see when they look at us, or I forget, like, but Ava DuVernay's film, and a lot of these films that are good, and everyone should see them, but frankly, that's not those things are not made for me. In these like, people like include me in these conversations, and I'm like, no, it's like, these. Don't tell me. tell your uncle. Tell your wife. Tell your friends about this perspective. I know what you're saying. It's like intimately. So right. Tell them about systemic racism in this country. This thing you discovered. I'm glad you discovered it, but don't share it with me. It's like I don't need Black History Month to want to learn about Black history.
Right. Your activism should not include giving homework assignments to a Black man.
Exactly. So, or even informing, Black people of like what you've recently learned. It's like, that's good, but yeah, take it to your family, take it to your friends and relatives. Right. We got it. So
that's been one of my personal struggles lately, is because I have a tendency to overshare on the internet everything that I'm thinking at all times. And so as I was doing my growth and learning about what I could be better at, whether it's about white supremacy or white fragility and things, I wasn't trying to tell Black people what I learned in my head. I wasn't saying, look how good I'm doing, but some people perceived it like that, as like, see, I'm so good now. And I recognize that is part of my responsibility right now, is to do what I think I need to do. And because there are people that are white who are struggling, I think, who are seeing these documentaries. Oh my gosh, have you seen this? And I still think that part of my responsibility is to articulate what I'm learning in a way that might help other people articulate and make sense of what they're doing. And again, I want to thank you. There was a period when I got was taking some criticism that was knocking me down, and you said something like, "Keep going, you're on the right path," and it meant a lot. So thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And it's funny how, I don't know if this has been your experience, but whenever I see like this pushback against somebody, a white person online, who's bringing up some issues of racism or whatever, and there's pushback about, you know, that person being, you know, virtue signaling or using identity politics or what have you. Almost always that criticism is coming from another white person.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think people of color, I mean, obviously there's, you know, I have had to kind of push back against some people for, you know, kind of overusing identity politics or engaging in virtue signaling. But for the most part, I think people of color just appreciate the effort, finally, on the part of some, you know, some white Americans in particular to kind of just, you know, pay attention to the problem, notice the problem, shine a light on the problem, and realize that they are, that they have functioned as part of the problem, and now are figuring out in their own, you know, time and means, like ways to address that and ways to kind of do their part to move past it, and then bring whoever along. So, yeah, so I, you know, one, I appreciate it. I appreciate the effort, and it's tricky to, you know, a lot, you know, to, you know, if there's going to be pushback or somebody's going to try to shoot somebody down for doing that, or at least making the attempt, I often have to question like where that intention comes from, that intention to criticize, for somebody for doing it wrong. It's like, at least they're doing it. At least they're doing something. It's like I have to skip over these 20 people doing nothing to come kick you in the pants for doing it wrong. It's like, at least you're doing something. It's like, how about you just not leapfrog over these other people who are doing nothing, who don't care, and talk to them. And you want to put, you know, you want to kick somebody in the pants, kick them in the pants. You know, this person is over here trying. It's like, you're surrounded by people who aren't even trying. Talk to them. So that's kind of that exchange you're talking about. That's kind of that was my perspective on that whole thing.
I had a great experience this week where I put up another video. I kind of held back for a few weeks and then kind of did a book report of the most powerful learnings that I've done from the books that I've been reading. And because I think part of, you know, the responsibility as white people have now is to not message their Black friends and ask, you know, for the feedback or the link. It's just like there's plenty of work we can do on our own right now, you know, and so I kind of give a report of the things that I'd learned the most, and I was like careful to like address in advance the people who are going to be hurt, like angry at me for not being woke enough. And then as soon as I put the video on YouTube, all the comments were people that were attacking me for being too woke and being brainwashed by the left. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of, okay. It's good to know that I can never make everyone happy. That's just, there's something relaxing about that. Okay, it's coming at both sides. I just got to do it, but what feels right.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you about another thing that you mentioned. Burning Man was influential, and you also mentioned the impact of plant medicine. And I'm wondering if you can give I know it's probably a long answer, but an intro to how plant medicine has affected your life.
Yeah, it's certainly a way to kind of trim that down to a Cliff's Notes version of it. But I would say, you know, like delving into, you know, a little bit of that, you know, as a teenager with like, you know, cannabis, you know, having my time where I was like smoking a lot of marijuana, not doing a lot of drugs, because I had done LSD, you know, as a 19-year-old, and I think on the 5th time I did it, I ended up reading somewhere that if you did it 5 times, like you could be declared like legally insane or something like that. And this is like back in the 80s. So I was like, oh my God, I'm crazy. So I stopped for quite a while. And then I moved to California, and so
and they wouldn't let you in until you'd done it at least 5 times.
Right, exactly. And then I got the invitation. And so I was good to go. And so yeah, I didn't do much until I don't even think I discovered ecstasy until I was 30. That was fun. And you know, doing the whole like, you know, discovering raves when I'm like, you know, 30 and surrounded by all these like teenagers and just having a blast. It was great. But then you know, getting involved with Burning Man culture, and right around 2006 was my first at one of those little regional festivals, was my first experience with DMT. And that was an eye-opener. And being like, okay, so really kind of learning about that, and then quickly hearing about ayahuasca. And was like, all right, I think I want to, you know, at this point I was like, oh, I want to do that. I want to do that now. It's like, I was definitely a recreational kind of guy. And it was interesting looking back on it and even kind of seeing it at the time, like just wanted like the next experience, the next, like, you know, the next thing to take. It almost seemed like I was like leveling up, and now it's like, you know, like in a video game, it's like all these bosses I have to handle, like ecstasy, and then San Pedro and mescaline, and you know, LSD and DMT, and now it's ayahuasca is a big boss. And kind of trying to go after that for, this is like 2006, I'd say 2007. And kind of going after that. And every time I would hear about a ceremony, it would just be like, oh, it got canceled, or the spots filled up, or whatever. It just wasn't, you know, happening. And it wasn't until I really just dropped it, and it's like, okay, I'm just not gonna worry about it. You know, it's gonna happen when it happens, and literally forgetting about it. Almost immediately then getting invited by a mutual friend of ours. And so I ended up going to the first one late 2007 in Ojai, California. And that was, the first one was interesting. It was really the second one, which I did in Topanga on New Year's Eve. That was a real like eye-opener, and really, like, I'm blessed to have a connection with that medicine, with ayahuasca medicine. That's very conversational. Like, it speaks to me the way we're speaking now. And kind of offering me, like, in one of my visions, I was in a thick jungle, and if you looked, you could see a path through it, but it wasn't there readily apparent. And was offered like, okay, this is the path that you are invited to take. Should you, you know, should you be willing? And I was immediately was like, and I knew that was a big invitation. So, but I accepted and ended up on a real deep dive where I was going into, you know, sitting in 2 or 3 ayahuasca ceremonies a weekend, every other weekend for about a year and a half, and really diving deep with that medicine. And essentially over the course of that time, really kind of broke me down in the ways of like, you know, shattering like my identity or my thoughts and beliefs, and really just breaking me into, you know, pieces on the floor, and then me gathering up these pieces and reconstructing myself and realizing I don't need to put all these pieces back. I can, you know, I can leave some of these things that are holding me back. I can leave those there, and something better will grow in its place. So that was, so yeah, that was my life for a good 5 or 6 years. And the good thing is that, you know, that there's that message by Alan Watts, bring him up again, where he said in regards to the use of psychedelic, you know, medicines and substances, it's like when you get the message, hang up the phone. And I really feel like I got the message from ayahuasca, you know, a few years ago, and medicine was very clear. It's like, okay, it was a really beautiful message, actually. The medicine, you know, appears embodied before me, and she puts her hands together in the cup, and she's like, there's this much for you to know, and that's it. There's not a lot. This world is not that complicated. We like to complicate it because it gives us something to do, it gives us something to think about. Our monkey minds love to just, you know, we've got this beautiful Swiss Army knife of a mind that we just feel like we just got to use it all the time. It's got all these multiple tools in it. It's like, oh, I can do that. I can fix that. I can do that. It's like, there's not that much. This world is not that difficult. It's not that complicated. So, and realizing that we don't have to know it all. We don't have to have it all figured out. There's something to be said for allowing a little bit of mystery to exist in our worlds. Because if we don't have it defined, it can be anything, and there's a lot you can do with that. So medicine was like, go out in the world and just live and just be. You got it. Not that I've got it all figured out, but I don't have to have it all figured out. You'll be fine. And so it's been good. Quite the journey since then. It's been lovely.
So in terms of it's fairly simple. What are some of the things that you do know about this life?
Just that. Well, one message that comes readily to mind is that we don't have nearly as much time as we think we do. So we tend to kind of live our days as if our days are not numbered. Our days are endless, and it takes a while to figure that out. I wish I'd figured it out earlier. And we kind of gather that, but what we don't realize until you get to a certain point is that time tends to accelerate. It speeds up as you get older. Reason for that being is that back when we were 5 during summer break, remember when you were 5, or 6 in between elementary school and summer break lasted forever. It was the reason for that is 3 months when you're age 6 or 7 or 8. 3 months is a much larger percentage of your life than it is when you're 50, 52. So these months go by like that, and it just goes faster and faster and faster. So I'm 50 now, and the time of my life from age 20 to age 50 is not going to feel the same as age 50 to 80. It's going to be possibly half that. And so the amount of time passing is the same, but my experience of that is going to change. So it's important to kind of recognize that if you got something to do in this life, you need to get to it. If there's something you're in a job you don't like, you're in a relationship you don't like where you're living, anything that you're not happy with in your life, you gotta pull the plug on that. You gotta make a move. You don't have much, but you're gonna blink and this 5 years are gonna pass like that. So it's got to. So if you've got some moves you want to make in life, a business you want to start, anything, today is the day. Get to it. And so that's been something that I've been a good lesson that I've been able to take away from the medicine and apply it to my life. And it's been good. And it's scary to make a change, but if you trust the universe, if you trust life itself to always be to your benefit, it might seem scary to leave the situation that you once really wanted to be in, but it's all to your benefit. You just take the first step, and it's you'll be surprised how safely and quickly and easily and gently you are held by the universe itself. It just it's here for us. It's benevolent. It wants us to be happy. So but we got to take the steps. It's not gonna pull us out of the situation. We have to want it. We have to take the physical steps, but before long we'll be no longer just stepping but flying, and it's great.
One of I think the really beautiful side effects of the world right now, I was thinking a lot of people are being pushed to a similar understanding of wait, what am I waiting for? I need to, I can't just wait out my life in I gotta make a move. So speaking of making moves and doing things, can you tell me about New World and what your mission is?
Well, New World Nutritionals, it's nuworldnutritionals.com, is a company
link is in the description.
Fantastic. It developed really organically, in that just kind of going back a little bit, back to Burning Man. But I was 1 year at Burning Man, 2009 or something, doesn't matter. I managed to knock myself out by doing a header off a bike and just like almost lost my eye with a piece of rebar. It was just like, yeah, it was a mess. But 5 years later, after that, maybe 5 years ago, I was experiencing like what I felt was depression. And it was like getting worse. Hard for me to think, hard for me to, motivate myself to get out of bed, things like that. And really felt like I was spiraling, like I was really going in a bad direction, and with quickening pace. And in my, desperation of trying to find, like, I was considering getting on, some pharmaceutical meds, antidepressants, anti-anxiety even. I was starting to really feel like it was about that time. And in my research, I came upon something that was called executive function disorder or executive disorder. It's like that deciding to get off the couch and go make yourself something to eat is an executive decision mentally. And I lacked the ability to do that. I would just sit on the bed watching Netflix or sit laying, doing whatever. Like, I need to get up and take a shower, and I just couldn't get up to do it. And I was getting depressed about that. And I thought I was like depressed. The reason I was doing that was because I was depressed. The reason I was doing that was because I had executive dysfunction. And once I learned that, I actually talked to a neurologist and described what was going on. He's like, yeah, that's what you got, sounds like. And so he wanted to put me on medicine, decided to find a natural way to do that. And it turns out things like mushrooms, in particular, like lion's mane mushroom, is really like the king of mushrooms. And so I started taking these, like, Chinese herbs, natural mushrooms, medicinal mushrooms, all to help like my brain kind of rewire itself and get back to speed. Also discovering that microdosing of psilocybin was also good for that as well. So, and figuring out that a lot of these things combined with each other could really help, and it helped me a lot. So things were going really well for me. I had some friends who were like, "You seem to be doing really well. What's going on with you?" And I would describe what I was doing. Oh, maybe that would work for my sister. Maybe that would work for my husband. Maybe that worked for me. Could you make me that? Sure. So I would like essentially make them the same stack that I was taking myself. And then friends started telling more friends. And then I started hearing from people who I didn't know, but who knew them. It's like, oh, you're helping my coworker out, da 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 da. So maybe can I buy a bottle of that from you? And I was like, sure. And after that happened enough last year, I was like, maybe I could do a little something with this. So that's how New World Nutritionals was born. All, using all natural ingredients to help people, like, kind of maintain a healthy state of mind, like reduce symptoms of anxiety, depression, ADD, ADHD. There's a kids formula I've got that helps kids like calm the F down. That's currently working really well. So yeah, the business is all about like just helping people naturally, help their brains function at their highest potential.
Well, I am a enthusiastic user. I had some real darkness in recent months, and was struggling to get out, and started your protocol, and I've been feeling great since. Still the world is still fucked, but I can face it in a way that I was unable to for almost 2 months. And so I'm super excited and stoked that you are on this path, because I feel like the one certainty about the world right now is that we are going to have an increase in mental health struggles. And if we can have some alternatives besides just more medication, more pharmaceuticals, I think that that is so encouraging. I had a prescription for Wellbutrin or something like that I was filled long ago that I never took. And it's just kind of been like, maybe now, like, something's broken. I need to try something. And I go, well, let me try some microdosing before I just kind of give up, because I know the getting off of that train is that's a whole nother topic. But I'm so glad. So I thank you again for finding your way to the work you're doing now, man.
Yeah, and a lot of the work I've done with the personal work I've done with plant medicines got me to a place where I could see the benefits of these things. And you don't have to go out and trip every weekend. You take these in just small amounts, and somebody that's very dear to me described it as, it's like the product that I've been taking and making. It's like a spa day for your brain. So just like, it's not going to change, it's not going to change your world, but it's going to change how you view it, and allows you to function and, kind of take steps to be like, all right, things are going to be okay. And it's helping a lot of people. And that definitely feels like a mission worth having. It feels like a purpose that's easy for me to stay on.
Absolutely. So can I ask you, what are you most encouraged by in the world right now? And what are you most frustrated by?
They are, they kind of interchange probably to be one and the same, in that, what's frustrating, well, because I'll start with like the bad news first, go to the good news, but it's not necessarily bad or good. But the frustrating part is that it took as far as the world today goes, is that it took a global pandemic to shut everything down so that people could start to wake up to the fact that this country's got a problem. And no restaurants, no movies, no television. And Tiger King was only 8 episodes long, and at the same time, like 3 other innocent Black people needed to be executed, frankly, in short order for people to really be like, whoa, wait, what's going on here? And it's like, and I think a lot of Black America is frustrated in that it's like that it took that to like wake up, compounded with the idea that, I've had people who've been like, talk to me like, I had no idea about the Tulsa race riots. I had no idea about all these things about Black history. And it's like, I never learned this in school. They didn't teach this in school. And it's like, well, you've been out of school for 10 years, 15, 20, 30 years. If you had, and I mean, the royal you, if you had at any point in the last 30 years, just Googled the phrase Black history, you wouldn't have to follow too many links down before you came across the Tulsa race riots, before you heard about the Philadelphia Move bombing, before you found out who the Chicago Midnight Crew was, before realizing who Claudette Colvin is. You could have done this at any moment, not just February of every year, but you could have learned about these things at any time. People just didn't care to do so, and it took a pandemic to kind of wake people up to that. So that's frustrating. Conversely, I see where we're at politically as a necessary thing for us to be going through. I remember being in an ayahuasca ceremony shortly after the election in 2016, one of the last ceremonies I went to, and just having this vision of where we're at now, essentially, like what the next 4 years is going to be like, almost this cartoonish version of white supremacy was going to be coming up and out, which might not have happened had the election not turned out the way it did. This, festering, underbelly of this country has been there for 400 years, since day one. And we might have still been kind of sleeping right through it had we not had the worst version, the worst possible outcome for the election, and be like, wow, so we've got all this stuff that's out and about now. That to me is actually highly encouraging, because it's not going to go back under a rock. It's going to need to be dealt with, and it's not going to happen in 1 year. It's not going to happen in 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 years, but it's out now, and it's not going to be able to go back. So this is our task as a country and as people, to be like, okay, so we're going to do what it takes to heal this as best we can. And it's going to take a while, but the work has started, really finally started this year. That is massively encouraging. I used to believe that, as Martin Luther King said, it's like, I might not make it to the mountaintop with you, but I know we're on the way. And I kind of firmly believe that it would happen, but I wasn't going to be around to see it. And now I actually believe, like, if I'm lucky enough to live to, for another 50 years, that I will actually see some real, like, not just a generation, but multiple generations who are steering this country in a really positive direction, and therefore the world. As a result, this country has undue influence in the world, and I think we're on our way to getting ourselves, to actually embodying what the people who created this country believed that this country could be, even though they didn't believe that could be that for everyone. But where we're at now, it's like, okay, we can actually embody these principles and apply them to all the citizens of this country, and we can make some real good in the world. We're moving in that direction, and that's got me pretty stoked, pretty excited. So we'll see.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh man, is there anything that I forgot to ask you about that you want to make sure people know?
Nope, I think you've no, I feel like we've covered a lot of things. I think we've touched on a lot of aspects, and except for, I'd like the opportunity to just say once again, I'm not interested in blowing smoke up your bum, but you're doing some real good work, and have been for the entirety of our connection, which is growing on 10+ years now. You have like literally saved people's lives out there without really trying. Like you're just being who you are and showing up and showing your light, and that's literally saving people. So thank you for that. And I've often believed, like, if we could just improve one person's life, our job is done. It's all gravy after that, and you've done far more than just that. So thanks for that. Yeah, that's appreciated.
That means a lot. Thank you, brother. And thank you for taking the time. I've been so looking forward to this conversation. I look forward to many more conversations. So grateful. I love you. Have a beautiful day. And the links to his company is in the description. What can I say? Thanks again.
You're very welcome. Anybody has any questions about the company, feel free to, direct, we got a Facebook page as well. You can check that out and ask questions there, or reach out to me directly. It's all good. And yeah, we're all just walking each other home. It's going to be a fun walk. So thanks so much.
Oh, I need to go.